Hey everybody. The journey to the rabbit hole. So this video I've been putting off for a little bit. I've attempted to record this, I don't know, about a dozen times or so. And I know I say that every video, but it's true. This one is harder for me, and it's not even the hardest one yet. So we left off with my beginning and where my journey started, and that was the death of my mother. And that's when I began very slowly pushing people away. It was little and it was small in the very beginning. I would either not participate or dismiss something or hide. Hiding was my thing. I spent a lot of time like hiding from people from my life, and that's just what I did. Over time, I began pouring myself into my job, as I had stated in the previous video. And I'd been promoted from being on the road staff to supervisor. And I thought that was a great opportunity for me, that I could pour myself into that job. I could help make things better. And I think everybody thinks that every, now and then, that they're going to accept it because they're going to make the difference. They're going to make it all better, and people are actually going to listen to them. That was me. I'm not even going to lie about that. And in a way, like, I think I've had a good impact. And in a way, I think there's only so much somebody can do. And it is what it is. I'm not here to bash my job. I'm not going to. I still have a love for my job, even though during time periods it gets rough, and it's the people, the drama, the crap. You know what I'm talking about. Like, everybody goes through it, right? You go through questioning yourself. Why do you do this? Why do you keep putting yourself through it, until you get that one moment that just explains to you why you still do what you do. So, as a supervisor, part of the supervisor responsibilities of the company that I work for is expected that the supervisors respond to any high priority call. And that's anything from structure fires, with or without entrapment, multiple departments, confirm working fires, things like that. Bad accidents, rollovers, entrapment, death, and cardiac arrest calls. They go to help the crew, and it could be anything from controlling the scene, talking to bystanders, gathering information, being that contact point just to get them more resources, or being an extra set of hands. Because, all of us have been on those calls where you feel like you needed more help. Well, the company that I work for sends a supervisor if they're available on those types of calls, so that you're automatically there. Whether you're needed to help do things medically or just to be support, whatever your role ends up being in those moments. And I enjoy doing that for the most part, like taking part of that stress off, like figuring out an exit strategy on a difficult call, or help coordinating with more ambulances or fire departments or helicopters, whatever the case needed be. It was what it was. Well, with that promotion, and always also put me back onto night shift. And for a while, I was working days. I was spoiled. I worked during the day, went back to nights. I was not a fan. I really wasn't. But was what it was. One particular evening, the call that almost ended my career, I almost quit. I work for, or in an area that is relatively small. Okay. Like, crime rate isn't super high. We don't wear bulletproof vests. Like, it's not a thing. Get a lot of accidents. We get a lot of like little stuff, but we don't get what I'm about to describe to you, ever. So that one particular evening, it was actually a weekend of me sort of being in trouble. So, to back up just a tiny little bit, I'm sure y'all get annoyed when I do this, but it's kind of relevant. Okay. So, the day before, it was September 27th. And actually, we're going to back up a little bit farther than that, all right? So, newly to supervisor world, there was a tragedy that occurred within our community. And it happened to members that I worked with. And we are small. We are a small operation. So I think we have like 75 employees now, but at the time we didn't. And so when something affects one person, it affects everybody. And there was a really bad accident that claimed the life of one 13-year-old girl and severely injured another. And both of their parents worked with me. That was the first of the big supervisor responsibilities I had, was to help best I could. But it put one of them off of work for a little while, and rightfully so. He did not belong there, even though that's where he wanted to be, just for the distraction. But he wasn't. He also happens to be one of my best friends, very good friend of mine, who I've known for almost 16 years now. And his little girl I had known since she was basically 1 or 2. I watched her grow up. And so that hit hard. Felt helpless. What do you do? So I just went into basically recovery mode. Like I took over some stuff. I kind of got handed some things, and I went off of the night shift for a little bit, just to help take care of some stuff while he was gone. But September 27th, I'd actually been in contact with this breeder. I was looking for a dog for Paige. For anybody who doesn't know, Paige is a special needs child. She is, right now, she's 17 years old. But mentally she's only about 4, and verbally she's maybe 4 months old. So she suffered a traumatic brain injury at birth. She wasn't breathing, and the part of her brain that would have been dominant basically died. So I was looking for a companion for her. I got put in touch with a woman named Lisa, who had explained to me that she had a dog. It was a Cane Corso. They are an Italian Mastiff. For people who don't know, they're very large dogs, but they're labeled gentle giants. And we had made arrangements for her to bring Kira, who she was looking to rehome, to come meet Paige to see how they reacted and how they got along and things of that nature. And she was left with us. I had told Robert that we were just doing a meet and greet, and I honestly thought that's what it was, but they actually left her with us. And not that I regret any of that, because I don't. She's been a godsend. But my husband was not very happy with me when he learned that Kira was still at our house. We had an agreement. We had 2 small dogs, and we had an agreement that we weren't getting any more animals. Those 2 dogs were more than we could handle, really. We had a miniature Schnauzer and a Shih Tzu, both of which are gone now. Jasper, the Shih Tzu, he died just before we moved, and Gizmo, he's been gone a few years. But anyway, he was not very happy with me. I explained that we were getting this dog for Paige, for his Peanut, and it still didn't go well. So at any rate, I'd gotten this dog. She was a therapy dog for Paige, emotional support, therapy, whatever the case may be. The very next day, I learned that she was going to become my therapy dog in more ways than I ever dreamed. September 28th, night shift. Starts just like any other shift. I had I was working with amazing crews. Always work with amazing crews. We had a good night. It started off just fine. I had a newly hired paramedic that was not new to the job, but new back to the company, who was working that day. And it was, we had a transfer that had to go out, and we had a couple 911 calls. He had agreed to stay to help cover, which was awesome. And it just before midnight, the 911 tones dropped for the 9 Echo 1. For those of you who don't know what that means, it's a cardiac arrest call for 35-year-old female not breathing. The full crew responded. I responded right behind them. Actually, I responded in front of them because I knew where the address was, and they didn't, so they were following me, which is fine. Again, they both had been only working for us for a couple years. And some of the roads, especially out in the hills, like you either know them or you don't. I just happened to know where this road was. One of the hardest parts for me is I have memory that's like a Rolodex. I could recall everything, whether it was traumatic to me or not. Conversations, incidents, patients, I can tell you all about them. It's my curse, not my gift. Although some of them who have stuck with me and have helped me, but for the most part, I remember the bad and the ugly. So we were responding to this call, and in my head, I'm thinking, 35 years old. Is this an overdose? Is this a diabetic? Suicide, cancer, a lot of things going through my head as to the reasons why. As paramedics, we are trained to treat the causes, to try to fix it, to try to get somebody back. We were updated en route that the caller was refusing CPR. Now, I'm not even proud to admit this, but I was updated by our dispatcher. I'm pretty sure my response was fantastic. Very sarcastically, mind you. Sorry, I feel like I got something in my eye. And no, it's not my finger. Like I said, this one's hard for me. This was 4 years ago now? 3.5, 4 years ago? And I still remember it like yesterday. It was cold. It was raining. And I was responding to something I'd never forget, turns out. We get to the driveway, and I'm stopped by one of the lieutenant's assistant chief. I know you're going to watch this, and I'm sorry I forget what your title was that day, but I remember the look on his face. He stopped me at the driveway and said, we can't go in. Why not? And he tells me his scene's not safe. I'm literally on scene. I'm on scene. I'm staring at the house. There is a cop car in the vehicle. Or cop car in the vehicle. Really? Oh my God. All right. So I should not record this late at night. I'm sorry. There's a cop car in the driveway. He says that they believe that it's possible robbery. Scene's not safe. We're not clear to go inside. Great. So I pull off on the side of the road. Second ambulance is coming in. They go to back into the driveway. I stop them, tell them, no. Park behind my vehicle. Scene is not safe. We can't go in. And they said, why not? I said, that's all I know. So meanwhile, more of the first responders in that department were showing up to assist with a call, because we were in an area where first responders were dispatched to not all first response agencies respond to every call, but some of them just respond to the higher priorities, and this happened to be one of them as they continue to show up. I got word and overheard that they were only going to let a paramedic go inside. That's not good. Not even a little bit. It's not good. Okay. Cop car after cop car showed up down the driveway, out of the car, into the house, around the house. No idea what's going on at this point. 21 minutes later, I am sitting on the back bumper of the ambulance waiting, have my gloves on, waiting to go in if that's what it's going to be, because we don't know yet. Sheriff's deputy comes walking up the driveway and says, I need a pair shell. You're it. I still blame him. He knows I do. I still do. We talk about this. I still blame him for all of this mess, even though it's not his fault. After being, who I am for multiple years, people start to know who you are. And he knew I was a paramedic. He knew I was a supervisor. He picked me. At that time, my uniform consisted of a white button-up shirt, EMS pants. Again, it was raining. It was cold. You could see the rosiness in my cheeks. It was freezing. I was cold. And I had taken my jacket off because it was a little on the baggy side and I didn't want it to get in the way. Anybody who has ever worked a cardiac arrest call knows that you don't want anything that could potentially get tangled in anything. That's, your sweatshirts, your job shirts, whatever. Your badges, if you wear them around your neck like I do, radio straps, you take it off. Just so there's nothing in your way. As I'm walking down the driveway with the sheriff's deputy, he's describing to me what I'm about to see. There are no words. I promise there isn't to describe the events of that evening. I walked into a house to pronounce a 35-year-old woman to confirm that she was dead. And she was. Beyond help. There was nothing anybody could do. I could have had a trauma surgeon in my back pocket and it wouldn't have mattered. She was murdered. And it was brutal. And it was bloody. I will never forget. Never. I could tell you what color shirt she was wearing. I could tell you everything that I saw. Like it was just moments ago. Still almost 4 years later. I can describe it all. This call was almost the end of my career. I do as I'm requested. I verify that she's not breathing, that there is no pulse, and they tell me that I'm good. I can go back outside. So I do. The entire first responder department and the EMT and paramedic who had gone with me, I could see them standing up on the roadside waiting. They were waiting. They were ready. They were ready to do their job. And I came out that door and started walking up the driveway, and I released the first responders back in service, and they all gave me hugs and asked me if I was okay. Apparently, my face had gone from rosy cheeks to paler than my brand new white shirt. I believe it. All I could think in that moment was that I needed to start writing stuff down because I knew this was going to trial. I was going to be going to trial. I was going to be testifying to what I saw. So, grabbed a piece of paper and a pen that half worked, and it's funny. It's not funny. So a year and a half after this night, at the first grand jury, I had saved all that paper. I'd saved everything, and I pulled it out. to review the call. Not that I needed to, but just in case. And it still had the watermarks. The paper still had the watermarks on it from that night. I sat there in the rain writing on this paper, drawing a diagram, which I don't draw. Stick figures are my thing. But it was good enough to remind me of locations of pertinent details and items and things of that nature. When a truck shows up, a female running to me, please tell me you have my sister. Where's my sister? Please tell me you have her. And the tears just started pouring off my face as I replied, no, ma'am, I'm so sorry, I don't. She went running towards the house, and the blood-curdling scream I heard still echoes in my ears. 4.5 hour standby later, I'm returning to the office, where I'm sent home. I was not capable of driving, so the EMT who had gone with me, now mind you, nobody else had gone inside, and as hard as this was for me, I would gladly do that all over again to protect my crews, to protect my employees, to protect my friends from having to go through that, from having to see it. I still do that. I will still protect them, even knowing what it would cost me to do that. She drove me home. My husband, this was, it was like 3:45 in the morning. My husband was standing on the porch with the dog that he didn't want outside because she had to pee. So he thought. When the car pulls up, he was like, what are you doing home? More important, why is she driving the car? Long story, not relevant. But anyway, Kara ran up to me and just, I was a zombie at that point. I had held myself together on scene until I got back to the office, and then I just lost it. I was ugly crying, bawling my eyes out. I couldn't hold myself together anymore. I couldn't do it. I've seen trauma. I've seen bad trauma. I've seen deceased people. I've seen practical decapitations. I've seen young deceased people. This was brutal. This was at the hands of somebody else. This was a homicide. I didn't sign up for this. The more I learned about the situation and the fact that there were children in the house, they were safe, they were fine, but the oldest one watched the whole thing. That's a whole nother part of all of this. She watched. She saw it all. She watched her mother murdered brutally. This is about the point where I would stop recording, but I'm not going to, because I think it's important that you see that even after 4 years, it still affects me. When I got home, I had basically become a zombie. The trash cans had not been taken out yet, so I went and grabbed those and put them at the curb. I was doing stupid stuff outside, like picking up. This is almost 4 o'clock in the morning, and I'm trying to clean. My husband's trying to talk to me. And I just wanted to clean up stuff. I just wanted to stay busy. And Kira just sat there and let me hug her. And the more she insisted, she'd do that nudge, like getting my arm so that I could hug her and hold her. And I did, and I just cried. And I lost it, and I cried, and I cried, and I cried. I almost quit that day. It's not what I signed up to do. I also didn't realize how much it was going to affect me. I figured that, after a few days, everybody has those hard calls. And after a few days or a week or so, I put it past you. I had a debriefing, one-on-one, with a man that I would trust with my own life. He let me sit there and just cry it out, describe it all. There's no help. There's no helpful words for that, for what I had experienced. I felt like a failure. I felt like I didn't do enough. I felt like I should have tried, even though I knew that I couldn't. Trauma dead, that kind of death is just dead. There was no hope. There was nothing. And she had been deceased for well over an hour or two by the time we even got the call. So there was no bringing her back. But I couldn't live with that. I started to become a different person at that point. This is when I dug the hole. This is when I dug the hole and I started actively living in it. Okay? I hid. I would spend days in my pajamas. I didn't eat. I didn't talk to anybody. It wasn't because I didn't try. My husband tried to get me to explain, but he didn't understand either. And I didn't really explain it in a way that he would. Didn't show him why it affected me so bad. After this call, this was like just the beginning stage and rounds of devastating news. At least that's how I took it. About 6 months after this call, I learned that my sciatic pain was more than just sciatic pain. I was diagnosed with lumbar stenosis and degenerative disc disease. Lumbar stenosis, for those who don't know, is narrowing of the spine. It is hereditary, and there's no cure. I was going to need surgery. That should have been career ending for me. I had ended up with 2 herniations. Both of them were repaired. 1 disc replacement. They had to remove bone at all 6 nerve sites and do a fusion. Ultimately, at the end of that surgery, was when I found out that I was never going to get to be who I was prior to that ever again. I still, 3 years later, I have a hard time carrying heavy things. I'm not supposed to lift anything more than 50 to 75 pounds, and even that, people can laugh and snicker, and some people are like, holy cow, that's a lot. It's not really. I used to lift stretchers by myself with patients on it. It was part of my job. And I'm not saying that to brag. It's just, I did. It surely didn't help my injury any. Devastating blow after devastating blow after devastating blow. I shut down. This is the time where I actively started pushing my family away. They tried to help. My husband, after my surgery, he took a few days off of work to take care of me. They had a plan, even my kids, between chores and helping me and all those kinds of things. And after I went back to work, I was still restricted. I wasn't allowed to be on an ambulance, not by myself. I wasn't supposed to be lifting anything. And some of the bosses didn't like that. One of them even told me that because this was not a work-related injury, that I either needed to get a doctor's note to release me to full duty or go out on disability because there was no room for me, being as I was. That was strike number 3. I was all done. It was like, first the call that changed my life forever. Back injury, not even an injury, just diagnosis. Took me away from, at least I believed it did, I believed it. I believed it was ending my career. I really did. So that's how I acted. That is absolutely how I acted. I would go to work, I'd come home, lay in my bed, sleep, and I pushed my family away. I would snap. I'd get angry. I'd pick fights on purpose. We're going to get into those details during the next video. The point of this one is that just because you identify where this begins for you, you also have to identify when you started to dig the hole. When did you start living in it? For me, it was 4 years ago. That's when I finished digging it. Started digging it after my mother died. Finished digging it after that call. Didn't come out of it. And lived in it on the regular every single day after my back diagnosis and after the comment from one of the bosses. I took what people thought of me and made that become real. It didn't matter anymore, not to myself. At least that's what I thought. This is when the PTSD began. Depression came first. PTSD came second. Because after that call, every bad thing that I had ever seen came to surface. Everything. Everything that I thought I had dealt with in my EMS career came to surface to slap me in the face, and I couldn't handle it. The very first call I ever took in EMS for the company that I work for was a burn victim. Deceased. She was, she burnt in an apartment. She couldn't be identified except for dental records. That's how bad it was. After the call that I just described to you, people started texting me. You know, people in Skinnerland, they hear things, they hear names, they hear stuff like that on the radio. They hear people talking, or now with social media, they see something on Facebook. Asked me, gave me a name. Is it blah, blah, blah? My response was, I don't know. They're like, how do you not know? You're there. That should tell you something. I didn't even know what color her hair was until the next day when it was in the paper and they posted a picture. I couldn't have told you that she had blonde hair. There's so much blood I didn't know. The point to this video, again, is identifying when you started digging the hole. What got you there? What kept you there? I could tell you all the excuses I used. God knows I had enough of them. I did. At this time, I didn't pour myself into work. I was picking up overtime, but I wasn't. Was staying extra, but I wasn't really. On my shorter weeks, 'cause I worked a rotation, I'd pick up a few extra hours here and there, but not like I was before. I wanted to hide. I wanted to physically crawl in that hole and not come out. Become a hermit. That sounded more fun. I didn't have to deal with anything. Not people, not my bills, not nothing. But again, we're going to get into the emotional, deeper side of that in the next video, and I promise it's not going to take as long as this one has for me to make and post up. It can't, but I can't do this all in one shot. Owning my emotions and owning my feelings behind it is hard. So when there's calls that affect you in a way that's like that, you know, you get told not to become emotionally attached. Don't become emotionally attached to your scene. Don't identify, but we do, right? Like, car accidents, that's somebody's daughter, somebody's friend, that cardiac arrest call. I've lived previous a rougher life. No, I wasn't her. I identified with her. She was my age at that time. She was my age. And she couldn't get out. Instead, her husband is accused of hiring a man to kill her instead of getting a divorce. He's currently in prison for the rest of his life. So is the man who physically did it. Maybe that's why I feel like I can sit here and talk about it freely, because he was denied his last chance of parole. Or so the newspaper said, anyway. It doesn't make it easier. I could close my eyes and I could still see her face. It still haunts me every single day. I can't apologize enough to her family or kids that I couldn't do anything. I couldn't take it back. I couldn't make it better. And I've met them all. I still get updates on our kids. A good friend of mine sees them every now and then to tell me that they're happy and they were smiling. But during one of the trials, I got to speak to the sister and learned that the night terror still happened. That child's scarred forever. She was 7. So, figure out how you get to the hole. What keeps you there? Is it an EMS call? Is it something that happens in your personal life? I don't know. I don't know what you've been through. I don't know what you're going through now. As you can see, I'm still living it. This is why I had to get help. This is why I'm telling my story. So let's figure out how you got to the hole. What caused you to start living there? And next time we're going to talk about the emotional impact that all of this had on me, my family, and what happened next, which is going to be harder than this one was. So, my friends, it's a lot. This is the next step of my journey. This is how I got to the rabbit hole that became more like a crater, where I began to live for the next 2 years from the start of the story. I'll see you next time, and very, very soon. Keep your chin up. You're doing awesome. Thank you so much to those of you who have reached out to let me know that my videos do help you, my posts do help you, that you have made the leap and you've gone and gotten help and you're getting treatment, and I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of you. Just know that there are days where it's still hard, and it's okay. It's okay to cry, it's okay to fall apart, and it's okay for things to still affect you. It's how you learn how to deal with them that matters, and that's why I'm here. That's why I'm doing it. That's why I'm telling you my story. I hope it helps. Thank you to everybody for your support, and most importantly for your patience. This video took longer than I had intended. I actually recorded quite a bit of it last week, and then I stopped. I couldn't get through it. I thought that I needed to, when I started to have that emotional breakdown, that I needed to stop and I needed to show you something that wasn't real. And it took me a week to figure out that you needed to see it. And number one, number two, there's no way for me to get through it without showing you that side. without showing you the pain that it still causes, in order for me to tell you that it's okay. It's okay. It's okay for it to still be hard. You're human. You're human. And part number 2 to this video is hopefully going to help you to not do to your family what I did to mine. I'm proud of you guys. Stay tuned till next time. See you later.